Hi, everybody. Welcome to Gray Area. I'm Rob Ingle, and I am thrilled to be talking to one of my personal favorite DJs today, someone who you will recognize the name, you will recognize the voice, and someone who's become such a powerhouse and tastemaker within the dance music community. So, Rimarkable, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, Rob. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. And I have so many questions for you. Like I mentioned, you're
Let's
someone
go.
who's become such a notable and energetic and positive presence within the dance music community. And I really want to get into what your journey has been like over the last few years specifically. But first, I really want to just take it back to the beginning. You're someone who I think really defies categorization. You've mentioned a lot of your like sonic influences being genres like jazz and rock and soul and gospel and funk. And of course, you're native to one of the most important cities on earth when it comes to music, which is Detroit. So could you just take us back and talk a little bit about your upbringing and kind of some of the musical influences that were a part of that?
Wow. Amazing. Okay. So my mother is a classically trained pianist, and my very first music, um, intro to music was classical.
Mhm.
And I count that as a super privilege, specifically because classical music is adjacent to classism, you know. And as a Black woman growing up in Detroit, it wasn't typically normal, or common, I should say. I don't want to say normal because
Mhm.
Detroit is a special place. That's a whole other conversation. But it wasn't common for me to have access to that. And so I grew up pretty privileged in terms of music, just having access to that, and classical being such a beautiful and complicated music. It prepared my brain for intricacies and awareness of music and style. And as with any genre, I think anything can fit into it. So it kind of
Mhm.
anything can fit into classical. You can make it disco, you can make it house, you can make it hip hop. Um, it prepared me for that. I also My mother also was a music minister of a church, so
Mhm.
I grew up also in the church. So I grew up around Black gospel music, and that music being the foundation of pretty much most of the American genres that are popular to this day, be it funk, soul, rock, um, uh, jazz, gospel is at the foundation of that. So I grew up pretty privileged with
Mhm.
the ear, you know, and I'm really, really grateful for that because it just broadened my horizons and made me super hungry.
Mhm.
And so the rest of my siblings, all musicians. I grew up in a musical household. Um, I grew up singing in church. I eventually taught myself drums. I was a professional drummer for a while. I had a little stint during that. I was a drummer in a punk rock band back in the day. And eventually I became a singer in several funk bands. And in particular, am I veering off the subject?
No,
Or am I
this is great.
okay? I was the lead singer of a James Brown cover band.
Amazing.
And I actually like to call it a tribute band. I didn't do any covers. We didn't do any gimmicky things. I interpreted the music. We interpreted the music, and it was delicious. And simultaneously of that venture, I started DJing
Mhm.
in 1997. Actually, I was in college and needed a job, and I found an ad in my school paper for a company that was hiring DJs. And it was back in the day when you could just bullshit your way through stuff. So I was like, "Yeah, I'm a DJ. Yeah, yeah, yeah." And they just were impressed by my music knowledge and my because Detroit's such a rich place. Like I grew up hearing everything. And I also grew up during the 80s. So the 80s was just like a cauldron of everything. And it wasn't like, oh, this is this kind of music. Oh, this is this kind of music. It was like, I like this song.
Yeah.
That's the jam. And everybody was into it, you know. So my ear was pretty trained. And um I'm grateful for all of that. It has helped me survive
Mhm.
all these years as a DJ. My ear and just my taste and just my ability to fit and pivot and understand the way things are related to one another. That was pretty long-winded. I hope that was okay.
That was fantastic. And it's funny. You just used the word cauldron, which I'm looking at my questions right here, and it's actually a word I specifically use because I want to talk about Detroit, and Detroit is such this cauldron of raw musical talent. I don't know what magic is happening in or around
It's the
that.
water.
It's the water.
It's the water.
Love it. From being, birthplace of Motown, birthplace of techno, it just seems like that city is constantly churning out stars and raw musical talent. So I was wondering if you could provide some insight on into what that is, why Detroit is such this prolific city.
I think Detroit is or always has been a place. How can I say this? It's been a city of hope, you know. During the Great Migration, post-slavery, during the Industrial Revolution, when Black folks were leaving the South and moving up north or up south, as they would say, there was a couple of few places that people gravitated to, and that was Chicago, Detroit, and New York City. And that's where the jobs were. That's where change was. That's where industry was. That's where hope was. And I think that people bring that hardworking element to a place where you had to work hard to make it become something. It being the birthplace of the car. Or the factory, the car factory, or mass production, which is actually where Berry Gordy got the idea for Motown because he worked in the factories in mass production and he understood the productivity and the success of doing things a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why Motown was so successful. But I think, and I'll talk about that more about that in a second. But I think that Detroit is a hard place, but it's also super beautiful and super soft, and it's also so up north that people kind of forget about it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also cool because it's adjacent to Canada.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually closer. It's a stone's throw, like Detroit and Canada.
Yeah.
If you get like a slingshot, bro, you could be like, and you would be in Canada. You know what I mean? Like, it's closer than Manhattan and Brooklyn, if that gives you any kind of visual of it. And it also was one of the last stops on the Underground Railroad. So it's just a ton of hope, and a ton of necessity, and a ton of hard work, and a ton of kind of because it's been forgotten or people just don't think of it or remember it all the time. When people aren't watching you, like you get to do whatever the hell you want to do, And I think that that is what happened in Detroit. It's kind of like we can be weirdos. We can try some different things. We can just be an adventure, and I think hello, the music tells it all.
Yeah.
a wonderful place that has produced a ton of stuff, including rock and roll, including soul, including jazz. You know, some of the greatest jazz musicians of our time came from Detroit, and no one really discusses that, you know, or gives Detroit a nod for that. And yeah, it's just endless. It's endless. It's wonderful.
Amazing. And, as you mentioned, you kind of grew up or kind of were raised among when, especially when techno was really just finding its footing in the city and starting to kind of percolate out to other cities in the US. Could you talk a little bit about, like, paint a picture of what that time was like when there was just this inception of this super prolific genre happening?
I think that techno came about during a time where people were trying new things and were given permission to do things different.
Mhm.
And you can Google this and it'll always pop up. But there was this radio show, the Electrifying Mojo,
Mhm.
that wasn't it was like an adventure. Like, dude would come on, and it was almost like probably like Little Orphan Annie, or I would probably liken Electrifying Mojo show to the early days of radio,
Mhm.
when there wasn't any visual, so the narrator is creating the visual with sound effects and with the voice and with dialogue. So probably like Orphan Andy, or like one of these adventure shows from like the 20s, you know.
Mhm.
Um, but Electrifying Mojo, he was taking you on a space journey through
Yeah.
sound and music and time, and his show was super dope because he played everything. It was the first time we got introduced to Prince. It was
Mhm.
the first time we heard like Tears for Fears and Duran Duran and B-52s, and he was playing classical, he was playing jazz, he was playing everything, but he did it in such a soulful way that it gave you permission to feel comfortable with it, with
Mhm.
something that's different or something that wasn't common and regular in your neighborhood kind of thing. Um, and so that stuff was going on, and all this technology was coming out, you know, and keyboards, Casio was doing their thing, Atari was out. It was just kind of like a digital era that we
Mhm.
started leaving analog and getting into digital stuff. And so these young dudes, and a lot of women don't get
Mhm.
spoken about in the story of techno.
Yeah.
There were plenty of women that were doing things, specifically Serena Tyler, Stacey Hot Tail. I definitely want to give them shout outs as pioneers of this music. Um, but these were just like your cousin, your brother, your homie in the hood,
Mhm.
messing around with keyboards, messing around with sound, being inspired. Also, I want to mention um, Kraftwerk,
Mhm.
because they were the first time we heard kind of digital kind of music. Um, I do want to give them a nod because it's such a controversial subject
Mhm.
about who started techno and how techno started, and da 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 da. I definitely believe and feel techno started in Detroit,
Mhm.
the sound that we know and hear, but the first time we heard that digital programming came from Kraftwerk.
Mhm.
But anyway, so these dudes in the hood are making this music, and they're sharing it, and then they're printing it, they're pressing it rather, and it starts spreading. And it was the sound that was on the radio. It was the sound coming out of cars. It was the sound in the hood.
Mhm.
It's hood music. This was hood music. It wasn't. It really wasn't like, oh, we've discovered the a moon. You know what I mean? It wasn't like
Yeah.
that. It was just like, this is what we're doing right now. You know, people were doing dances in the driveway, doing routines in the driveway. It was on television. Um, it was on television. It was on the radio. It was just regular. And they have the guys that started techno, and I will leave their names out of it because you can Google that. Anyone can Google that, and we all know the pioneers of techno. They had a relationship with Chicago, and what was happening at the same exact time was house music was being born in Chicago. And so as techno was being created, house music was being created, and they were having a relationship. And so there is a relationship between Chicago and Detroit. It's like 5 hours. They're like 4 to 5 hours apart,
Mhm.
So it was nothing to go to Chicago. It was nothing to go to Detroit, um, and share information, um, and then it blew up. I'll leave that to your viewers to do the research on that. It's totally accessible information. I'll spare you all that. But I do want to make a little footnote here that everyone should find and watch this documentary called God Said Give Them Drum Machines. And really, 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 really is the first time I saw such a concentrated effort to take you through the journey of techno and the way that it was created. Um, so check that out.
That is, I'm writing that down. It's it's going straight onto my list.
Yeah.
Um, so Rimarkable. I want to turn a little bit back to kind of your career as a DJ. You said you started in 1997. Could you take us through, your journey since then and kind of how your career is, I would say I wouldn't even say a triple threat is accurate. I would say a multi-hyphenate creative artist. So could you talk a little bit about, from the moment that you started DJing, the moment that you really started to fall in love with or actually, let me ask you that. When was there a seminal moment or a singular moment where you discovered and fell in love with house?
Yeah, I had to have been like 9 or 10.
Hmm.
We had gone on. So my mother is from Louisiana, but she also grew up in Chicago.
Hmm.
So I went to Chicago often, and we were leaving Chicago, coming back home, and I fell asleep with my headphones on, my Walkman, and the radio was on. Like I had ran through my tapes, so I had to listen to the radio on my headphones, and I was asleep. And I'll never forget. I was leaning on the window on the door, and this music came on, woke me up out of my sleep. It was house music, and I was like, "Wow, what is this? This is incredible." And like I was telling you, I grew up in a staunch Christian household, so like I wasn't always having access to commercial music or radio music all the time. So I may have missed a couple of things, in that stage of my life. But headphones really helped me. Headphones are like my jam. Like I'm able to disappear and go into my own world and have control over what I'm listening to. So I'm listening to this in the car and I'm like, yo, the way my body was just going, my little self, I just was like, no, this is incredible.
Hmm.
This is incredible, and I have to have this. I need more of this. I'll never forget it. I'll never forget it. I'll never forget it. And so I was just in constant pursuit of that.
Hmm.
But also during that time, it was so regular. It was everywhere, like
Yeah.
commercials and TV and the radio and it just was like a beautiful discovery for me. And it wasn't like it was a secret thing. It was so common.
Hmm.
Um but I knew that was for me.
Yeah.
I knew it was for me. I also grew up during the birth of hip hop.
Hmm.
And so my brother was a b-boy and hip hop was all the rage as well.
Yeah.
So my brother in all the talent shows doing breakdancing and everything, and it was in all the movies, Break In and Crush Groove and um, Wild Style, like all of that kind of stuff was like a huge deal. Hip hop culture was a huge deal, and
Mhm.
I felt like house was more for me. And what's interesting is that house and hip hop started around the same time, and they're brother and sister. They come from the same mother.
Yeah.
You know, they come from the same mother. Um, so yeah, like that's what it was for me. And so as I continued my journey growing up, I listened to a bunch of stuff. I was a huge George Michael and Prince fan, like
Mhm.
obsessed with them. Um, and Prince was pretty weird for a young person to be interested in the way I was interested in it.
Yeah.
People come to school and reciting the latest Fresh Prince or Biz Marquee hip hop song, and I'm like, but have you heard the new Prince?
Mhm.
Have you heard Parade? Do you, you know what I mean? I was just such a weirdo for that. Um, and so my musical tastes just were, and I eventually started listening to hip hop and what have you. But um, house was it for me. And so when I started DJing in '97, I was already a club kid. I already knew that's what I wanted to do. I was already a club kid. I was already going out, partying, hanging out, dancing to this music, immersed in this music.
I love that. I have a similar story. It's funny because you talk to some people and they're like, my brother was a house DJ, my uncle was a house DJ, and they were like introduced, like someone introduced them to it. And I guess for me it was the same way, but I started going out to clubs when I first moved to New York, and it was like such a discovery for me. I saw, none other than Honey Dijon when she was playing littler clubs in New York, and I was like,
Hmm.
what does this sound? What am I listening to right now? Because I
Exactly.
need I need more of this.
Yeah, exactly. It's infectious. It's amazing.
Love it. And I guess, well, before we get to, kind of your journey and your career with Defected, which I think is a huge part of your story, and I think where a lot of people know you from, could you take us through a little bit, from when you started DJing, kind of some of the seminal moments or milestones in your career up until kind of the past few years where we've been working pretty closely with, the biggest house label on the planet?
Um, so back in '97, there were not a lot of women DJs, for
Mm,
one. Let's start there. Um, there were some, of course. There's always been women present, but nowhere near what it is now. Nowhere near what it is now. Absolutely not. And an important part of my journey has been combating or proving people wrong
mm,
about their assumptions about me. I mean, back in the day, it was kind of like I would come up to the party and they would be like, "Are you waiting for your boyfriend? Are you here for are you are you here for your boyfriend, or do you need help with that, or what are you about to do?" Like, "Oh, you're the DJ? What?" Kind of thing. And um, so I've always had in my mind that I had to prove people wrong
mm,
because people made assumptions about me being a woman, or me being a black woman, um, or just me being powerful, you know. So I started off being a club kid, outside of DJing, and I also had to balance it because the work I was doing in the very beginning was like private events. I was doing weddings and bar mitzvahs and what have you, like stuff that I was deeming corny, but I also knew was super important because it actually trained me. Like playing for those audience trained me for the club because
mm,
you're playing for a diverse group of people and at one time, and getting them to unify through the music has been it was wonderful training, but that has been an integral part of the impetus behind my work.
mm,
Has been the nucleus of my work. Is like I'm bringing everybody together. I'm here to bring everybody together. Everybody's walking through the world from different walks of life. Everyone's from all over the place, and we have to come together through this music.
mm,
And so fast forward through that, eventually started working in the clubs. That was pretty cool, and I was simultaneously singing in bands and
mm.
being a musician, my whole world was about music. Um, and then it became cool to record.
Yeah.
And so I started recording with some producers, and two things were happening. One, I was getting taken advantage of in terms of the business side of things. I have a ton of music out there in the world that does not list me as the artist. Miss has miswritten, misnamed me,
Mhm.
or and or I haven't gotten paid for that work.
Mhm.
Um, so that was devastating to me. But also, what was happening is I wanted more autonomy with how I was sounding, and I didn't know how to do that. So I taught myself how to produce music,
Mhm.
and because I couldn't, it was just kind of like, no, like you don't understand what I'm trying to do, and and so I taught myself how to produce.
Yeah.
So through that journey, I've discovered the importance of the connection as from the musician to the dancer to the DJ to the producer. I believe also one of the foundations of my artistry has been me being a dancer. I've studied ballet for a long time, and I understood the connection between music and the dancer.
Mhm.
The dancer is just as much a part of the music as the music itself, because of the it's a conversation that's happening, and so I understood that you have to be a dancer. You should be a dancer first,
Mhm.
then you should be a musician slash producer, and then you can be a DJ.
Mhm.
Did I say that right? Should be a dancer first, producer, and then you can be a DJ. I don't think you should be a DJ. Wait. I'm saying it wrong, Rob, because I have a whole thing and my brain just got scrambled.
All good.
This is the part of the beautiful editing, right? Um, you should be a dancer first, then you should be a DJ, and then you can produce. So you
Mhm.
understand how everything is operating together.
Yeah.
Because the DJ and the dancer are having the conversation. So many times when producers become DJs, um, that's not terrible, but I think you should have the information and understanding, the awareness of how the DJ speaks to the dancer before you start making the music. Because if you just out here just making music willy nilly, you don't understand how it will translate, how it will be received.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I want to ask you about kind of, I guess, another part of that equation, or maybe I'm not sure how you would consider this, but I think, we just both got back from Defected Croatia, which was an
Hmm.
incredibly amazing time. And, I've gotten to see you spin in Brooklyn, in Croatia now. And one of the things that I think I really admire is that you have, yeah, I'm not sure if it's a natural or a learned ability to kind of almost MC as you're doing your sets. So wanted to ask first and foremost, is that something that's kind of just occurred naturally for you? Is that kind of a learned skill to kind of, because that's something that I think not all DJs can do. And actually, in fact, most DJs cannot do, is kind of MC while they're simultaneously playing their set. And secondly, is that skill set somehow bleed into how you got connected with Defected and hosting Defected Radio?
Um, no, well, kind of.
Okay.
Well, let me back it up. When I first started DJing, the speaking over a microphone while you're working or DJing is actually akin to hip hop. It was
Mm,
a hip hop kind of thing, and so actually, when I first started DJing, I used to hip hop was the ruler of every damn thing.
mm,
So like you wanted to be a hip hop ish, you wanted to have that element. So like I was telling you, I was doing private events and things where I did have to speak over the mic. Um, and I stopped doing that for years when I started doing house music because ain't no talking in house music. No one talks. You supposed to just vibe and feel the rhythm, feel the bass, feel the connection, right? You're supposed to bliss out. It's a spiritual thing, right? So you're supposed to bliss out and not speak to your dancers. And so I I think for me, why I started doing it again is because it's starting to become more normalized.
Mhm.
People, and I akin that to during the pandemic when everyone was watching all their favorite DJs on Twitch and YouTube and Instagram and what have you. We had to speak to connect to people. And I think that hasn't gotten lost on me. I think it's important that you're like, hey, I'm over here. I'm feeling what you're feeling. And I'm actually wanting to assist you in feeling it more.
Mhm.
Because our attention spans are low nowadays, um, and people kind of need a little push sometimes. And so when you saw me, so I am starting to do that more. I'm starting to speak and just let people know I'm with you, you
Yeah.
know. But when you saw me in Croatia, um, I probably was doing that just because I was just in the spirit of it all.
Mhm.
And also because a lot of that audience knows me from my radio show
Mhm.
on Defected. So back to the pandemic. So I had already been in conversation with Defected. I've been in conversation with them to be signed with them since 2017, 2018, and it never was quite a good fit because I was releasing music and they were um, really excited about it and were like, "Hey, who are you?" You know, kind of thing.
Mhm.
And we were having a conversation, and it just wasn't a good fit just yet. Um, for me, it wasn't a good fit just yet. I wasn't prepared for what comes when you're signing with Defected, you know.
Uh-huh.
Um, and during the pandemic, when everything shut down, um, Simon Dunmore would watch my Twitch shows
Mhm.
and would hear me over the microphone and just see my rapport and just actually see how I'm DJing. You know, they only knew me as a singer. They didn't know I was a DJ. And so he was just kind of like, holy cow, this is nice. You're
Yeah.
good. This is great. Your voice is crazy. Your voice is amazing, you know? Um, and it started off with him asking me to do the radio show.
Mhm.
It started off with actually me doing voiceovers for them for their radio show. Then it became like, you know what? Let's just have you be a DJ on the radio
Yeah.
on our radio show. And so I did. I signed up. Yes, I'm down for that. And then they offered me an artist development publishing deal. So I am an assigned artist on Defected as well as a musician, as a producer, vocalist, as in addition to me having the radio show.
Mhm.
So that's kind of how that happened. And what was I gonna say? Yeah, so when you saw me in Croatia, that was such that set. I know exactly the one you're speaking about. It was, I don't know what happened. That was just such a blur, and everyone is still excited about it. I just was lost in the moment. I don't remember anything. I don't remember. It was just kind of like we were on a spaceship or something. I don't know. It was bananas.
It
It
was
was
no,
crazy.
it was a special experience for sure. And my friends who well, really it was my friends who were there was the first time being introduced to Defected in general.
Hmm.
And they were like best out of the festival. Okay. Yeah, that was it was something really special. And I think what I also want to ask you, Remarkable, too, is uh, you're, I think, someone who, externally or people looking at you really see this like wave of success that you're kind of riding or experiencing right now. So wanted to ask, like, and this might be a super hard and lofty question. I hate when people ask me this, but like, what do you see for yourself in the next couple years as an artist?
In the next couple years,
Mhm.
I see me releasing a lot of music. I see me touring a lot. I see my reach expanding.
Mhm.
Um, I see higher heights being reached. You know, I want to go even further with this. You know, I don't have those aspirations like I want to be the best DJ in the world. I want to be on everybody's tongue. I want to be da, 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 da. No. I want to bless as many people as possible.
Yeah.
I really, really consider this my life's work, my ministry, if you will.
Hmm.
Um, that feeling you felt during my set in Croatia, I want everybody to feel that way all the time when I'm working. I want you to come to church. I want you to come and get some healing. I want you to come and get an experience that takes you away from the craziness of the world, where you forget where you even are. You're just um high from the joy. You know, I often say joy is my life's work, and I mean that. So I see my reach expanding. Um, and I definitely see way more money.
Oh yes.
Mama likes money. I want. I definitely see way more money and more reach. And but again, not for nothing. Like I haven't been doing this long. If that was my main goal, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. And given, I guess, all of your experience and kind of all your experiences within this industry, wanted to ask, in your view, what does the dance music industry or the house music community need more of or less of, in your opinion?
We definitely need more women. We
Mhm.
definitely need more Black folks up to the front. Specifically because this music was created by Black folks for Black folks.
Mhm.
Um, and that wasn't shade to anyone that isn't Black, but it's like there's something about there's something about the concentration of the goal, you know.
Mhm.
Um, and what I mean is, I think folks have gotten away from the goal, which is like that love of music, that nugget of like, I'm making this for my people at the club tonight. They're gonna dance to this. You know, there was something so pure and so beautiful about that. And I think what the industry has been doing is making a facsimile of that heart. You know, and what happens when something constantly gets faxed? The ink dulls, and you start having blotchy imagery, and it looks like a carbon copy, you know. And I think women bring heart to the story, and I think more women up to the front. And I think that we need to get away from, if I hear the same sample in a different song one more damn time, I just can't handle it. You know what I'm saying? I can't handle it. It's not cool. The sampling of the music, I can't hear it anymore. I can't. You know, with my radio show, I hear everything because the people send me everything. So I'm constantly inundated with stuff. And I can listen to a song in the first 20 seconds and know if it's for me or trash, you know?
Yeah.
It's a lot of trash. And so I need to see the heart come back. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I would like to happen. I would like the heart to come back.
Mhm.
And some new sounds. And yes, there's still time and there's still space for newness. You know, there's still time to impress folks, you know. And there's still space for that. You know, we haven't heard everything yet, you know. So that's what I think.
I love that. And I guess one of my final questions is just how do you feel like we're going to get to what advice would you give to people to kind of get to that new sound, if it's not about using that same sample over and over, how do we get back to not having carbon copies of everything, but rather really get back to that heart of the music that you were just describing? Like what else needs to happen within the industry and for personal artists to do that?
Um, I think the makeup of the nightlife needs to
Hmm.
change because that's why they're making they're farting out music like they are. You know what I mean? It's just like
Hmm.
just throwing out bullshit. It's just so it can be played in the club and fit that machine. I think the structure of the nightlife needs to change. I think there needs to be a little bit more requirement for there to be new DJs. There's way too many DJs. And no one's working hard anymore. And I'm not talking about doing 5, 6, 7 gigs a week. That's not working hard. I mean, like, you're not putting your heart into it. You know what I mean? Working hard is not getting high and drunk every night and doing 5, 6, 7 gigs. And I'm so tired. No, it's like, is your heart in it? You know, that's why there's too many DJs. There's too many DJs. The nightlife is driven by money and greed. The promoters are putting 4 and 5 DJs on a bill. When I was coming up, you went to see one DJ and probably the opener. You know what I mean? Like, you got to have an experience. There was something so magical about going to see a DJ from open to close. Like, you were on a journey. Now you got DJs, and I'm doing gigs for 1 hour, 90 minutes. And mind you, I'm working, so I'm grateful. But like, I really want to play for like 4 hours, man. Give me a 4-hour set. Give me 3 hours even. I'm gonna do something with that. So I think when that structure changes up, it will make people work harder at making better music. You know, I'm listening. I probably get like 400, 500 songs a week that people send me to put on my radio show. And I'm hearing so many songs that are just like a loop. I'm like, you got to put this out on a label? It is just a loop. It's a drop and a loop. A drop and a loop. A drop and a loop. Ta-da! It's blowing my mind, you know? And yeah, the nightlife the conversation needs to shift. That's what's gonna help it. But you know, probably won't, because we are in a capitalist society. And I don't see that changing probably for another 15 years before everything implodes. Before the world blow up. It is coming, but not just yet. We have to start over.
Yeah, and let me ask, because I feel like I've, my experience with house music, I've always been very blessed and privileged that I was introduced to artists who do have their heart and soul into the music, aren't afraid, and in fact demand that they get to play those longer sets. And that's what going to the club has always been about to me, is kind of being taken on a journey. I remember one of the best sets I've seen this year, Kerry Chandler, man, he takes you on a journey. He takes you on a journey.
Kerry Chandler.
I know. Oh my gosh. But
one of my favorites.
So, me too. And I want to ask, in your opinion, where do those pockets still exist, or where can people find that?
Seeing the legends, because the legends demand that. You know, you probably won't see Louis Vega for a 1-hour set ever. You know, and if you did, you probably got $20 million for that. You know what I mean? But yeah, like you said, like going to see Kerry Chandler or going to see Louis Vega or Carl Cox, you know, outside of like a festival setting where it's like 1 million people coming at you, right? But like, you're gonna see that with the OGs, with the older DJs. That's when you're gonna see that, and you're gonna find that when you find that person that is an amazing house DJ or an amazing DJ in general, and is playing at the bar at a local pub for 100 people, 150 people, maybe 200 people, and people love them, and they're building up their career, they're building up their rapport with folks, and you really get to see some cool stuff. That's really kind of what my journey in New York was, you know, like that was me. I developed my following by creating my own spaces, creating my own events, where I was the sole DJ, and people got to see me on my journey as I took them on a journey, you know. So you will see that with the up and coming folks or folks that are unknown, and you'll find that with legends.
Amazing. Well, Remarkable. It is such a, number one, a pleasure to speak with you and an honor to speak with you. And then secondly, to have you in the music industry and have you, this was such
Thank
a
you so much.
refreshing conversation to me. And I really hope it does the same for Gray Area's listeners. So thank you so much
I
for
really appreciate you, Rob. Thank you for having me. It's been a delight. I'm
and
so grateful to be seen and heard. I appreciate it.
absolutely. And one more thing that we like to do before we go, we like to do a little rapid fire round of just some this or
Oh shit.
that question. So I have 12 questions for you here. I'm gonna do a little
okay.
rapid fire for you.
Let me get myself together. All right.
All right, you ready?
Let's go.
All right, question number one, festival or club?
I'm sorry, I got to think about that. Festival.
Number two, what is the ideal BPM for a track?
122 to 125.
Three, coffee or Red Bull?
Coffee.
Love it. Number four, what is the best dish or food from Detroit they have to try?
You gotta have Detroit pizza. You gotta try Buddies.
Love
Deep
it.
dish.
Number five, Vegas or Miami?
Neither.
Neither. Avoid them.
I mean, if I have to choose, I would say Miami for the beach.
All right, number six.
Both of those places.
Guilty pleasure TV show.
I just started watching. My partner just got me watching this show called Never Have I Ever on Netflix. I'm kind of into it. It's like the Grassy High or something.
I'm not a big TV watcher, but I'll check that out because I love.
It's pretty cool. It's like these high school kids of this day and age. So it's funny to me. Anyway, go.
Seven, favorite animal.
Puppies.
Can't go wrong. Number eight, favorite song that's on repeat at the moment.
Just because the way it's a beautiful loop anyway, but so it just is natural. I've been playing Break It Down by Ocean Lade a lot lately, and it's just been my vibe.
Amazing. Number nine, where's your happy place?
Home after a long tour. Home.
10, what is a track you never get tired of?
I will probably play forever. Never Too Much by Luther Vandross. I'm playing that song as long as I live.
And similar question, a track that resonates on the dance floor no matter where you are in the world.
I bet you Never Too Much would work anywhere in the world, but and you might have heard me play it recently. Red Alert by Basement Jacks.
Yeah.
It's kind of, I just started playing it again. It has a huge influence on my life and trajectory as a DJ, but I just started playing it again maybe the past 3 months. 2 months actually. I've really just started pulling it out, and I just played with Basement Jacks in Ibiza a month ago. Man, it just blew my head off to have that meta moment,
Yes.
So yeah.
And final question for you, Rimarkable. Finish this sentence. Before I die, I want to blank.
Spend 2 weeks in the Maldives on in a beautiful room over the water.
Amazing. Well, Rimarkable.
I pretty much do whatever I want, so it's hard
Yes.
to answer that question.
That's the goal. Do whatever you want, spin whatever you want, play for however long you want. Rimarkable, thank you so much for your time, and thank you for, again, taking the time to have this conversation on Gray Area.
Thank you, Rob. I appreciate it. Thank you so much, Gray Area. I hope you enjoy this. Much love and respect. Appreciate you so much. Thank you.